Well, thank you all for joining. We're going to go ahead and kick things off. I want to respect your time. So today is Waffle Wednesday. I'm so excited to be doing these webinars because, I'm a productivity specialist, and a lot of the Microsoft events seem to center around the more technical aspects of things like governance and development and Azure and servers and all of that. And I'm like, really? People just need to know how to do their jobs. And we've been doing these executive sessions for about a year now with different governmental organizations. And I'm just amazed. People have been using this for months and they don't understand what they're using. So that is what Waffle Wednesdays are all about. So thank you so much for joining me. So today's title is, spoiler alert, nothing actually lives in Teams. And I'm Sherry Oswald. So we're going to go ahead and get started and dive in here. All the fun stuff. All right. So who is Sherry Oswald? They call me Shortcut Sherry. It kind of stuck. It was a joke in one of my classes, and I've embraced it because people are like, that's really fun. I'm like, it is kind of fun. So feel free to reach out to me on Twitter, on Facebook. I also have a blog, shortcutsherry.com, or you can email me. But I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and a Microsoft Office Specialist Master, which just means I know stuff. But truly, what I want to be, my spirit animal, is the crabby office lady. If you remember her, she was like Madge of technology. And I love when people ask questions, because if you have the same issue, if you have an issue, probably somebody else does too. So feel free to reach out, and I love to answer those questions. I'm also an instructor on LinkedIn Learning. I have 4 courses that are based on SharePoint. So if you're interested on those, there is a bit.ly there for you if you would like to get a free trial and check those out. You can not only check out mine, but also other people. And I love to give props to my other LinkedIn Learning instructors, Bill Coulterman, Jenny Von Coulter, and for specifically for SharePoint. But if you're looking for OneNote, then definitely Heather Severino is one of my best friends, and she does an amazing job on OneNote. Okay. So I'm with Power Up Learning, and we are a partnership of people with a lot of skills. And so I like to partner with the right people and make them look good. We're not just trainers. And in fact, I really prefer not to use that term. I prefer learning experts, because training means you can replicate what I say or show you, but learning means that you can implement that and use it in your daily work. And so I would prefer to teach you so that you learn, not just train you to do things. So therefore, our motto is, why just train when you can empower people? We're facilitators, but we are not just, we don't just teach stuff, we actually do the stuff that we teach. I don't like to teach things that I don't actually have practical knowledge in. So we're practitioners, we're authors, from blogs to manuals to e-learning. Again, we're instructors. We are also change management experts. And I've been speaking for about 3 years all over the country, and now internationally, because everything's virtual. So if you have any need for learning or for change management, please reach out, let us know. All right, so I'm going to start today with the 3 C's of Teams. We're talking about the content that you interact with in Microsoft Teams. And Teams has 3 very specific functions. And the first one is communication. The second one's collaboration, and the third one is creating content together. The 3 C's of Microsoft Teams include many tools that are in Office 365. So we're going to talk about all of those and how they fit together. But our main goals for interacting with people is to communicate with them, to collaborate with them, and to create content together. All right, so we're going to go ahead and dive right into a demo. Gotta love Doodly. All right, I have a demo environment here, and I'm going to open up Microsoft Teams, and also going to open up the browser, because I like for people to have a base knowledge of where we're working. So Office 365 at office.com. In the old world, Microsoft used to have desktop only applications, and about every 2 to 3 years, they would release a new version of that. And some organizations would skip a version. So sometimes you're 6 years behind in some cases in the capabilities in the applications. And that's a big elephant to try and take a bite out of all at once. That is not how Microsoft works anymore. You are in Office 365, which is a subscription-based service, meaning that as the new features are released, you get those immediately or within their release cycle. So you're not having to wait 2 to 3 years, but you might have to wait 2 to 3 months. And there are different clouds. There's an education cloud, a healthcare cloud, a government cloud, and the commercial cloud, and then other specialty clouds. But those are the main ones. And depending on which cloud your content lives in, might determine what you see in your environment versus mine. Now, I have a commercial cloud demo right here. It's got everything from soup to nuts in it, and it's up to date. So if yours looks a little bit different from mine, that's why. All right, on the left-hand side, you see a whole bunch of little icons here. Those are apps in Office 365. And I always kind of try and correlate things back to what we have in our real world and what we work with every day. When I think of apps, I think of my cell phone. And if I were to look at the home screen of my cell phone, I would see a whole bunch of little icons on there for tools that I use to do things. So communicate, collaborate, creating content, surfing the web, sending texts, right? So how do I interact with the information that I need, and how do I gather it, and how do I share it with people on my phone? Same thing in Office 365. It's a collection of apps that let you do certain things, like Word lets you make documents. Excel does either data management or spreadsheets. PowerPoint, you can do presentations with that. But there's a whole bunch of other ones that people tend not to notice that are there. So I always like to click the little all apps button at the bottom of the pane, that's called the rail on the left-hand side, and show you all of the apps that are here. So this is the waffle. Why do we call it the waffle? And why is it Waffle Wednesdays? This button up here in the upper left-hand corner is called the app launcher. That's the technical term, but we lovingly call it the waffle because it looks kind of like a waffle. And these are all of the apps that are in the waffle. So all of the tools that are in the toolbox that Microsoft provides for us to do our work, to communicate, collaborate, and create content with each other. So we have things like OneNote, which is one of my favorite tools. So you can capture notes, create little notebooks, and also be able to share and search for information across your organization. So you can collaborate in the teams. Now I'm going to apologize. I scheduled this on a Wednesday on purpose because it's the one day of the week we don't have trash day, but we had a huge snowstorm on Monday, and apparently the trash people are going to come today. So if you hear the trash trucks behind me, I'm so sorry. All right. OneDrive. This is where we store content. As far as files, we can share them with other people. So it's like our file cabinet that we have control of. You have things like lists where you can manage lists of information. And those are also one of the tools that I love. And it's been in SharePoint for like 20 years, but now they're surfacing that in Teams and everybody's all excited about it. But all of this content is accessible to us through the cloud, which is Office 365, not a magical, mystical place with rainbows and unicorns. It's just all of the Microsoft servers out there in the world where that content is stored. So don't feel like, oh, this isn't secure or safe. Believe me, we're working with the federal government right now. I've been working with like special operations. The content is secure. It would not meet those regulations and those restrictions, and if the federal government wasn't using it, and healthcare as well. Okay, so when you think of these, think of all the different apps that we have available. So I'm going to start with a couple of them, and then we're going to talk about Teams here in just a minute. Okay, so let's start with something like Planner. Planner is a task management tool. So if I had a conference like this one that I needed to plan, maybe I needed to coordinate with a group of people, and I want to be able to coordinate the tasks for managing that spring conference with that group of people. So we're going to manage things like travel, lodging, sponsors, and catering. How many of you have used Planner before? If you want to just go ahead and raise your hand. Oh, good. So it looks like most of the people have used it. Awesome. This is one of those tools that it was like, ooh, that's so cool. Where has that been my whole life? And they don't know it's even there. It's been there for like 5 years. So very cool that you're using Planner. One of my absolute favorites. So Planner, you can have multiple planners. So I'm going to just go to the Planner Hub and show you. There's a whole bunch of them. There's like 8 of them in here that I'm involved in. So these are all tied to an Office 365 group, and each one of them can be leveraged in Teams. So this is one of the tools that we can use for Office 365. If we go to OneNote, OneNote, I have my own notebook, and I have another notebook that I share with other people. Now I could do, here's my notebooks, and here's the shared with me. And then based on what has been shared with me and what I have access to, I may be able to discover some additional notebooks that are available to me. All right, and then forms is another one that I think doesn't get enough attention. So forms, we can actually create surveys or quizzes. So the functionality of a form looks exactly the same, except for the fact that quiz, you can assign a score to it, and then you can rate and give the quiz score and record those. So those are pretty cool. So you have forms and quizzes. Now, all of these tools in the toolbox rely on a platform in the cloud, and that platform is SharePoint. It's all built on the SharePoint foundation. So I'll talk about this here in a second. I have a really amazing infographic from my friend Matt Wade that I'm going to share at the end that kind of describes all of the areas of Office 365 and how they fit together. But these SharePoint has been around for about 20 years. It's coming up on its birthday. I'm pretty excited about that. I've been using SharePoint since before it was called SharePoint. It was actually called a content management server to begin with. SharePoint is a collaboration space where you can add content such as documents or lists. So here's a list of content. So this is their product list, or you can have travel requests. So I added this little list and was testing out a workflow that I was trying to debug in here. You can also share documents. So here are all the documents that are being shared with the sales and marketing team. So this is an entire collaborative space that can be used to not just dump all your documents in and share with people. It's a space where you can build it out and be truly a resource and a workflow for whatever area of the organization that you work in. Okay, let's go back to the other one here that I wanted to share with you, and that's OneDrive. All right, so OneDrive, this, again, I like to make connections with how we work in the real world. OneDrive, if you still were in a paper world, would be that file cabinet that sits underneath our desk. I have control over it. I get to decide how it's organized. I decide what goes in here, what doesn't, and I get to decide who I share the content with. So the OneDrive being in the cloud, anyone that has access to the content in the cloud, I can share that with other people. Right now, most of these are private, but you can see a couple of them are shared. If I click the shared link on the right-hand side, I can see who it's shared with. And I can even change their permission. So if Irvin, I don't want him touching it, I just want him to look at it, I can change him to either view, edit, or stop sharing completely and take it away from him. Okay, so that content is under my control. Just like if I had a key to the file cabinet that sits underneath my desk, I could open the drawer, I could take a folder out, hand it, or a file out, hand it to Irvin or Isaiah and say, here, work on this document with me, and then I can take it away and lock it back up. This is where I have control over that. Okay, so how does all of that play with Teams? Teams is the toolbox. So I could go to Planner and manage my tasks in Planner. I could go to OneNote and add all my notes and work in OneNote. I could go to OneDrive and manage and share my documents there. And I could go to SharePoint and manage my lists and documentation. But that's kind of like when you're remodeling your house and you've got different tools in different rooms of the house. Now I need a hammer. Now I need a screwdriver. And going back and forth to those rooms is not really productive because the project that I'm working on is in the living room. So I would want to put all those tools in the toolbox and take it to the living room and have them accessible to me so that I can work on my project more seamlessly. So I'm not running all over the house trying to get my work done. The same thing here. So your Teams, when you're working in Teams, remember we have 3 primary functions in Teams. I'm just going to pull this one up to the top. And that's a tip for you right there. If you drag and drop your Teams into the order that you work in them most often, it's going to streamline how you work. You can also hide and show your channels for the ones that you're more active in or less active in. It kind of helps. So you can manage that Teams pane, which is a PANE, but it can quickly become a PAIN if you don't manage it as you get more active in Teams. All right, so I have the Contoso marketing team here. The communication piece of Teams happens in posts. So this is where we're going to ask and answer questions. We're going to share files or announcements with people and add your communication there. So if I wanted to add a new conversation, I'm going to say, good morning. Are we ready for the kickoff? And somebody might answer that back. You can respond to it. So this is going to, if you start using Teams instead of Outlook, the statistic is you're going to reduce your inbox by about 40% because people can interact with this statement. They can either reply or if you can imagine somebody sends out an email and everybody sends their response back, likely you're going to get duplicate responses because people did not see what somebody else said. So here, if somebody puts a response in, they can just vote it up, react to it with a thumbs up or a like or a love or a laugh or whatever. And that way you're gathering information from people simply by posting a question and having them acknowledge it by putting a thumbs up on there. Okay, so we're going to communicate using the posts. The collaboration and the creating content together happens first in the files. So here are the files that we need that we're working on, and I'm going to upload those files. So I'm going to upload some from my documents, and let's say we're working on this M400 kickoff. So I'm going to open all that content and add it here. Instead of emailing those documents around, I'm going to place them here. Okay. So we have product specs, we have release date promotions and benefits. Now, your teams should be built out with channels. So I'm going to give you my who, what, and how of teams. The who is when you create a team, that's what you need to consider. Who needs to work together? The what is the channels. What are they working on? So the sales and marketing team here has the general channel, or they have monthly reports. So these are different areas of focus for that team. Under the design team, they have a couple of items here. They have American Design Awards and they have the PNW Coffee Social Campaign. So different campaigns that they're working on. If we had the Market Project team expanded, you'd see there's a whole bunch of other channels here. So the team is the who, the channels are the what. So in our marketing team, if we decide, you know what, maybe this release day is an entire area of focus that we would need to separate out so people can focus on that, I'm going to add a channel. So we're going to call this release day. And maybe we have a pre-sales. And click add, and maybe we have a reports channel. So I'm giving them channels to focus in on. All right. So this was going to be reports. So those channels are created here, and each one of the channels has their own posts and their own files. So here, if we're going to communicate about reports, we're going to put a conversation in the posts in reports. If we're going to add files for those reports, then we're going to upload those files here. So I have a pre-sales report, and there should be a couple more in here. There's a reseller report, so I'm going to add those two. Now people aren't digging through an entire bucket of files trying to figure out, where are the reports in the files. It's already being organized for them by areas of focus. So when I think of channels, in my head, I think of the TV channel. And when I was a kid, I was the remote control. My dad's like, go change it to channel 11. And I'd have to go turn the channel. So the channels are how you tune in to what's important to you. And if this were, let's say, the ESPN channel, or the ESPN subscription, the channels in the ESPN subscription might be golf or racing or football or whatever that might be. So, I don't care about golf, but other people might. So this might be a channel that I need to tune in on. Okay, so we're creating the content and sharing those files together. So where does that content actually live? Right. So this is the big question I get all the time. What do I put in OneDrive? What do I put in Teams? And what do I put in SharePoint? Because it seems like there's 3 places where we can put things. Well, here's the spoiler alert. Nothing actually lives in Teams. When you're creating files, you are adding them to the foundation, which is in SharePoint. So if I were to go out to SharePoint, I can either click the link here that says open in SharePoint, or if I wanted to, I could go out to SharePoint and find that team either by looking for it here or searching for it. So I'm going to type in marketing and sites. And here's the Contoso marketing team. All right, so those files that I just uploaded, where they live, there's a document library behind the scenes. When you create a team, it creates a SharePoint site behind the scenes. And the document library, when you create a new channel, creates a folder in that team. So here's the pre-sales. Here's those reports that I just uploaded. And here's the general. So if I realize, you know what, this should have been in the release day channel, this should have been in a product specs channel, this should be in release day, you can actually organize and move the content here. So I'm going to move it to current library in the release day and move it over to that folder, right? Let's go back to Teams and show you what that did. Now you may have to refresh it. So general channel, if I go to release day and go to files, do you see those changes are mirrored here? That content lives in Teams. Now, why is this important to know? First of all, a lot of people are hesitant to share their content in Teams because they don't feel like they have control over it. So this is a great space for us to co-author and work on this document together. So if I wanted to work on this document, and I'm just going to put Miss Megan over here on the left, and I'm going to pull up, let's see. Okay, Teams. And I have Nestor open in another window. So this is not Nestor, this is Nestor. So here is Nestor. He's part of that team as well. I'm going to put him on the right and have him go to the exact same place. So he's in the general. And here are his files. Same exact document. We can co-author and edit this document. So if I want a new slide, I'm going to add one here. And if Megan here wants to add a new slide, do you see how it's starting to mirror? I'm going to put a new one down here and bring up Nestor here again. Oh, he's not wanting to dock. Hang on. There. So I've got Molly and Nestor working on the exact same document at the exact same time. And this is called co-authoring. No emailing that content around. So remember, creating, communicating, collaborating, creating content. This is the collaborating piece, right? So fabulous. Nestor has added his content. I don't want him editing that document anymore. We're done. Thanks so much for your help. Get out of my stuff. How do we control that document when we're back in Teams? So I'm just going to go back to Teams here and look at the little ... So here are my options to control this document. I can copy a link. I can make it a tab. I can download it. I can rename it. I can move it or copy it, or I can check it out. But that doesn't take away Nestor's permission. I don't want people in here editing this document anymore. And I can't control it in Teams, but I can control that in SharePoint. So if I click the SharePoint link here, here's the same document. And this time, if I wanted to, I can manage the access of the document. Look at how much bigger the menu is in SharePoint versus Teams, because the document doesn't live in Teams, it lives in SharePoint. And those permissions and things like workflows for automating, for version history and being able to restore and view version history, that all's happening in SharePoint. So people tend not to want to share content in Teams because they don't think they control it when it's there. So from here, if I want to, I can manage the access, and I can say only the owners can edit it, visitors can't see it, and the members, we can remove the permissions for the members here. Okay, does that make sense? Go ahead and raise your hand if that makes sense. Looks like we've got some great questions, so we'll make sure I address those. Right. Yeah, so Michelle's sharing, I found a trick to stop updating a file that is finalized. Check it out and leave it in that status. Is there a better way to deal with this? Yes, that's actually a bad practice because people can only see the last checked in version of the document. And if you happen to win the lottery and run away, that document sits in limbo. And I can't tell you how many times that I have worked in organizations that are like, they upload a document and they never check it in. So there's no checked in version of that document in SharePoint. So nobody else can see the document that they added because they probably missed the metadata or the required properties that were behind the scenes and it didn't allow them to check it in, or they've checked it out and gone on vacation, or my previous life is HR and I laid people off. So I'd say that's a kind of a bad practice. You can just change the permission as the owner of the library to be a read only so that they can't edit that document anymore. Very good. All right. So those documents here live in SharePoint. They're controlled in SharePoint, but they're shared and collaborate within Teams. So you've got the best of both worlds. Now, for me, whether I go to it from the SharePoint side or the Team side just depends on what's helpful and what's the tools that I need, what capabilities am I looking for. I get that question all the time. Sometimes Teams doesn't give you the control that you need over the documentation. So working with it from the SharePoint side is much better. All right. Okay, so documents in SharePoint, or documents in Teams actually live in SharePoint. Now, I want to point out something else to you. Michelle, you were asking about channels and private channels and shared channels. And so as a SharePoint architect, when they started rolling out private channels, I got a little nervous about that because I was like, what is going on? Why are they architecting it this way? Because site collections are disconnected. You can't share capabilities between site collections. And I'm a real big believer in shared terminology. And some of the Site Hub stuff does accomplish that. But, we're trying to even out the hierarchy and flatten it and not necessarily create subsites. But sometimes I still believe, my opinion, subsites are a good thing. But when you create a private channel, so if I go back to Teams, let's say I have marketing, like the directors or budgeting or something, they need to have a space where they can work together. You can create another channel, and I'm going to create this as budgeting, and call it a private, or designate it as a private channel. Click next. And I can add subsets of people from that group. You can't add somebody from outside of the initial team members into a private channel yet. And I think those are those shared channels that they're trying to band-aid that now. Let's see if it's going to resolve here. It's taken a second. There was an outage earlier this week, and I'm wondering if there's still some residual issues on that, or if it's just our demo environments are a little slow. I don't have control over everything in my life, and this is definitely not one of them. All right, so I'm going to go to Teams in the browser while that does its thing. So beautiful thing is I can switch over to the browser version. Okay, so here's Megan, and in her same team, so we'll see, oh, look, it popped up here, but it's not showing on the other side. So here's budgeting. I want to point out in the files, when you look at the files, in the SharePoint library for that team. Let's look at this one. Look at the URL. It says M365. This is our demo tenant, and then it says Sites Contoso Marketing. When you create a private channel, and it's still spinning on that side. Let's go back to Teams. When you create a private channel in Teams, it creates a separate site collection. So here's the budgeting channel. And if I go to Files and open that in SharePoint, look at the URL. And it says Contoso Marketing Budgeting SharePoint. I'm just going to resize the window just because that little banner for the webinars at the top. So I want to make sure you see this. Do you see how it puts in Contoso Marketing Budgeting? It creates an entirely separate site collection when you create a private channel. So they're essentially disconnected. And you don't have all the capabilities in here that you do in a SharePoint site or a shared channel in Teams. And I'll show you what that means. Okay, so in Teams, I'm going to just skip this and hopefully it'll do its thing. There we go. In Teams, we now, remember, we have the posts and the files, communicating, collaborating, but we also have the creating content and other ways to collaborate. So if I'm in the private channel, notice that I can't put Planner on a channel. So there's certain applications that are not allowed to be in a private channel, where if I put them on a general channel or any of the other shared channels, I have a lot more applications that I can share. So here's the tasks by Planner and To Do. So that same planner board, if I wanted to, plan a marketing blitz or something, I can put that in here. Let's say these are marketing blitz and click Save. I'm now creating a planner board that will appear on the tab for that team. So here's Marketing Blitz. It's part of my tools in my toolbox. I just moved it from the other room and brought it into the living room where I can actually work with that tool very easily if I have a presentation that we need to work on. So I'm going to add that PowerPoint presentation that we were, instead of having it in the folder, I can expose it onto a tab in the team. So as we're collaborating on the document or collaborating on the presentation, everybody can view and see that file and collaborate on it live, which is awesome. And then what's the nice thing about it is these are fluid. The tabs are fluid. You can add or remove or rename them as you need to. So once we're done with this presentation, I don't need it to be surfaced. I want it to hide it, or it's still in the library, but I don't want it on the tab. So it removes the tab, it doesn't remove the file. The file is still there. And then I can go back and change the permissions and make it read-only to ensure that people don't edit it after we finalize that document. Any questions on that? I'll give you a second there. Nikki's got a question about lists, and I'm with you on that. Let's talk about lists. All right, so some of our other content is to create a list. So here is the list option. And we're going to save. And we're going to create a list. Now, if you have an existing one, you can put it there. But here are a bunch of templates that are available now. So if I, let's say we're working on marketing, and here's our content scheduler for the marketing plan. Maybe I want to add that to the tab. So here is the content scheduler. It gives you a preview. Go ahead and use the template. Give it a, let's do, this is the M400 release and comms, and give it a little bit of a color and an icon. I can't wait till we can put our own icon. Some of those, are awesome, but all right, so now I have a list. If I want to add a new item to that, let's say we're going to do a blog post and all the cool stuff. And the status is planned. We need the draft by, let's say, Friday. It's going to be a blog post. If we have an image, Okay, so go ahead and add all the content, and this is your schedule now, right? So basically it's a task list, to your point, Nikki. You're like, I've been using Planner for things not associated with a team or group, but this is awesome. So we have the list available to us, right? Where does that list live, right? I don't have an option in here to find out where does that list live. Let's go back to the SharePoint site. So I'm going to take the little shortcut back to open in SharePoint and look at the site contents for that. And here is the M400 release comp. So even though the file or the list was created in the team, it lives in the SharePoint site that is underneath the team. Okay. So if I want to, go ahead.
Sorry, I have a follow-up question to that. So we were using Planner within the team, and then somehow I think we got out to the SharePoint site, and I started using lists because Planner only lets you associate with a group or a team. It doesn't let you create like your own personal planner that I could see, unless that's a feature that has to be turned on by our admin. Whereas lists lets you associate it with a group or team, or create your own personal list if you go to the lists app in SharePoint. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. Actually, at Ignite a couple of weeks ago, they have now announced they're going to have what are called rosters, which allows you to create your own planner that doesn't associate it with a group. Because again, as the SharePoint architect, when people are creating all these plans, like, yeah, they want to collaborate, and maybe it's my own stuff that I want to keep track of, like kind of like a bullet journal format that I wanted to use, or I'm a speaker at a lot of events. So to track my speaking events and where I'm at on those, now I have to create a whole group, which creates a whole bunch of other stuff, which we'll talk about here when I share Matt's graphic. It's like when you create a group, it creates a whole bunch of other things behind the scenes that we didn't need. I just need somewhere to track my tasks. So I'm 100% with you. And obviously that's been a highly requested feature because they finally rolled it out, which is awesome. All right. Let's do one more in here, and then I'm going to talk about chat, and then we'll go back and talk about where all this other content, how it's structured with each other. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the team. Thanks for the question. It's awesome. All right. So if I had a notebook that I wanted to keep our meeting notes in, I might add a OneNote notebook here. And I have one that's already assigned to the team if I wanted to, or I can create a new notebook called M400 Planning and click Save. So this is creating the OneNote notebook. It's on the tab. I can now start adding my sections. How many of you using OneNote? I love OneNote. It's my favorite. Just one of you. Okay, OneNote is like a 3-ring binder. They're like digital 3-ring binders that have sections, which are like the dividers in the binder, and then pages. I still am a big champion for the desktop version of OneNote. There is a web version, there is a Windows 10 version, and then there is a desktop version along with all the mobile versions that are out there for Android and your tablets and phablets. But the desktop version has the most functionality, just like every other application has a desktop version. They tried to take away the desktop version, and basically we stormed the castle with our torches, and they're going to give us the desktop version back, but there won't be a OneNote 2019. So the latest release of desktop OneNote is 2016, and then it won't be in 2019, but it will be in the next release of Office. So, all right, so here's my meetings. Let's say we're having a meeting coming up this week. Let's say it's going to be on Friday. Project meeting. I can now add my notes, my agenda. We can do our action items in here. The magic of OneNote is in these tags, and in the desktop version, you can create your own tags. You can customize them as well. And so this is, again, one of my absolute favorite tools. So OneNote is accessible to not just, it's an application that's on your desktop. It can be kept in your OneDrive and shared with other people. It can be kept in a team. So where does that, again, where's that file live? I'm going to go back to files here and open it SharePoint. And here's the notebook. So when I created it, When you create a team, it creates the SharePoint site behind the scenes. It also creates a basic notebook that is standard for that team that's here. So I have the marketing notebook, and then I can start building out the section. So sometimes you need an additional notebook, but there is one by default in the structure of the SharePoint site underneath the team. Okay. All right, so let's talk. We talked about teams and collaborating content, collaborating, communicating, and sharing content with each other in teams. But there's a different level of working together in teams that people need to know about, and that is the chat capability. So the teams are your more formal structure. The chat are your more informal structure. So maybe Pradeep and I need to have a conversation. I'm going to start it here. Or Nestor, I need to have a new chat with Nestor. So I'm going to say, good morning, Nestor. Or I'm going to say, find Nestor. And say, good morning. Or for some of you, it might be afternoon. Good morning. Right. And now I want to share a file with him. So I'm going to add from here. Notice my options are OneDrive or upload from my computer. So if I already have a file in OneDrive, because this is what I have control over, I can unlock the drawer, pick which file I want to share with him. So I'm going to pick this customer data and click share. And don't forget to hit the little send button. I'm notorious for that one. All right, so now I've just shared that file with Nestor. We can, again, he could open it, I can open it, we can co-author and work on that document at the same time. Now, what if Nestor shares a file with me? So I'm going to bring Nestor up here, same chat, and he has a file that he wants to share with me. So he's going to attach it. Guess where this one's coming from? His OneDrive. So I'm going to send that one. So those files now they're being shared in OneDrive. Right? I can open this one, he could open this one, same thing, and co-author on that document. Where does that file live? It lives in OneDrive. So if I go, let's open up Nestor here and go to his OneDrive. And we'll see that file he just shared is right here. So if after we're done collaborating, I don't want Megan to edit it anymore, I can just access her content here and kick her out. I just want her to be able to view it or stop sharing with her completely. So when you share a file in chat, it's stored in OneDrive. Here's the other little kicker. When you share a file, let's say you have it on your desktop computer. So I'm just going to go in here and share a file from the desktop. So upload from my computer. Let's say it's in my local documents. And I want to share this M400 promotion. And share that with her. Anybody know where that file goes? This is like the big mystery. All right, that file actually goes into a weird little folder in OneDrive. Let me go back here. I'm just going to refresh this to get rid of the banner. Go back to the waffle. Oh, go away. There we go. So I'm going to go back to OneDrive. It's training me. It creates this weird little folder called Microsoft Teams chat files. So here's the same file that was just shared in the chat. So if it's not already in OneDrive, it'll upload it to your OneDrive. It's not sharing it from your desktop, because if you close or shut down that computer, you can't share it with people. You can't share it from a local drive or a network drive and have people access that and give them permission through Teams. You have to share it with them. It will upload it into your OneDrive and then assign them permission on that document. So this right here is important to know, because you have to go in and either organize your Teams chat files. For me, this is not a useful space. I'm more of a filer than a piler. I like to have my folders in here. If I had a bunch of M400 files, I'd probably have an M400 folder in here instead of having a big document dump. And when you upload and put content in Teams and don't have it already in OneDrive, it's going to put this in what is going to become a great big document dump. So how do you control that? You could upload the file here first and then share it in the chat. That way you won't end up with this mess. Because if you change the location, you're like, oh, I don't want this here. I want this in my M400 folder. Then you'd have to move it. And then the link to it is broken. So when you share your files in chat, they're shared in OneDrive. So if I go back to Teams and look at my files, you can see here are the files that we've been working on recently. And this is where they live. So this is in the Condoso marketing team in the general channel. This one's on Megan's OneDrive. This one, depends on who shared it and where it was shared from. And you can see that from here. So that recent files can be a huge asset to you. If you're like, oh my gosh, we were working on that last week and I can't find it. I don't know where we kept it or who was in charge of it, because you can also create what are called chat groups. So as soon as I bring somebody else into this, so I'm going to invite, let's say we're going to invite Patty into this conversation. This becomes a chat group. So again, kind of making the connections in our real world. If Nesta and I are just working together, I might go to his desk or he's going to go to my desk and we're just going to talk and work on that file together. This is kind of the virtual version of that. Now we have a larger group of people, probably going to go create a little conference room where we can work together. So this is called a chat group. And as soon as you have activity in it, you can actually rename it to give it a context. So maybe this is M400 prep. And now Nestor has files, or Patty has files, or I have files that we need to share and collaborate on. We've created a little conference room where we can have conversations, share our files. But again, those files live in OneDrive. If Patty shares it, it's going to be in her OneDrive. If I share it, it's going to be in my OneDrive. If Nestor shares, it's going to be in his OneDrive. These are supposed to be little temporary workspaces for you to work together. Okay. All right, so you have 3 levels. You have individual chat. So Nestor and I shared in OneDrive, files are in OneDrive, content is in OneDrive. You can actually add additional tabs. So if you have a OneNote notebook that it shares, maybe this is your one-on-one with your manager, and you have a notebook that has the notes from those one-on-ones. This would be a great way to consolidate that and create a new OneNote. It's going to create a OneNote in your OneDrive and give access to the person that you're working with. If you have a stream file that maybe you want to share, or a whiteboard that you want to collaborate on, you can do that here. Or websites that you access or share with that person. So you can build out the tabs, not just for teams, you can build it for one person. Look at all of these. I can add additional tabs, and I can create the chat groups that has the tabs for our workspace, whatever we're working on. And then you have your teams, which are your more formal groups with different areas of focus. Sometimes the content that you're working on one-on-one or in a group eventually needs to go into the teams. This is something you're going to just kind of develop and work on together as a group, and then share it with the larger group of people. So that might be a good option for you. All right, we have about 10 minutes left, so I want to make sure I answer your questions. Oh, and just to kind of put a bow on that, if we go back to the Office 365, Microsoft 365, and if I were to go to OneNote, guess what I'm going to find? Here's those M400 planning. Here's all of my shared notebooks, the one that we created in the Condoso marketing. So if I just want to go look for my notebook, I don't have to go to the team to find the notebook. If I wanted to go to Planner and see all of the plans that I have. So here is Planner. Here's that marketing blitz. Here's my favorites, and I can see all of my tasks in one place and change the view here's by progress, here's by plan, here's by due date, and manage my tasks all in one place. I don't have to go to 20 different planner boards. So the opposite is true. We gathered up all the tools and put them in the toolbox and took them to the living room, but those tools actually have their own space. So I can just go look at Planner and not have to go to 20 different places looking for all the tasks that I need to get done, or all the notebooks that I'm working on, or all the PowerPoint presentations that I'm involved in. Okay. Let's see. So planner, are the dependencies going to be incorporated like a mini MS project? They don't have subtasks subtasks yet, and I don't. The dependencies really are the checklist. This is not meant to be a replacement for project. It's kind of that sweet spot between Excel and project. If you're needing that, use the right tool. So you can, in SharePoint lists, by the way, create subtasks. So that might be a better option, is to create the list in SharePoint and then create the, but you still don't have the dependencies. You can only create subtasks. But you can open, if you have the project license, you can open your SharePoint list in project and manage it from there as well. That's actually one of my classes, the managing your projects in SharePoint. That's one of my LinkedIn classes. Because I see a big need for that, and people ask me all the time. Planner actually does integrate with project, and I haven't been able to get it to work. I've seen articles on it, and I haven't had a use case where I personally had to do that yet, but I want to experiment with that. So that's a really good question. If I figure it out, if you don't mind, I'll tuck away your information. Just send me an email, and when I have a chance to figure that out, I'll give you an update. All right. So the shared private channels being rolled out, it all depends on the release schedule. So it depends on if you're on early release or later release. The government cloud gets things months later because it has to pass another level of security between the government and Microsoft. So just all the easy and vague answer is it depends. Okay. Let's see. So from Nikki, I started using lists like a planner for things not associated with a team or group. Not perfect, but it helps. Yes, you're right. All right, Teams chat files. And I'll share that with you again, Michelle. So it's me@shortcutshare.com is my email. All right, if you have any other questions, feel free to post them. And otherwise, I'd like to go back to the presentation and share with you, again, one of my favorite graphics. And this is from Matt Wade. Matt does not pay me to promote his infographics, but I love them. And I wish I would have come up with the idea first. He's just amazing. So when you create a team, you also create an Office 365 group under the surface. Then that's what a lot of people don't understand. And they want to go play with teams. So they'll create a team to play with. But guess what you just created? You created an email address. You created a planner board. You created a SharePoint site. You created a stream channel. All of this stuff is created when you create a team or create a chat. So you can just have an Office 365 group without a team. Or if you already have a group, you can do what we call teamify it and add the teams layer to it. But underneath the surface, this is everything that's created when you create a team. So if you're curious about how that all works together, be sure to check that out. He also has the periodic table of Office 365 that shows you all of the pieces and parts. And every time I take a screenshot of it, it's outdated because he keeps updating it because, of course, Microsoft is evolving all the time. So be sure to go out to his website, jump to 365 if you're interested. And if you think this would help communicate the structure with other people in your organization, because pictures obviously are much more easily understood. That's why we go to infographics than trying to write it all out, because people aren't going to read all that. But this makes total sense to me. So hopefully that helps. All right. Any other questions, or what was your favorite thing? And I'm going to add another poll here. So we're trying to decide what we're going to do next for Waffle Wednesday. So let me know what you would like, and even let me know how often. You know, we talked about doing it weekly, you know, but that's a big commitment. Or having some guest speakers that I know of that are amazing, and have them jump in. Tom Duff actually offered yesterday in one of my webinar sessions that I did for GlobalCon. He's like, let's do one together. I'm like, yes. So Tom Duff is awesome. He has 1 Minute Office Magic is his website. All right. So Stream, looks like Stream, Sway, and OneNote are the big winners. So, okay. Sway is fun. My friend Leanne loves to, we have some sessions. She does what she calls a sway off. They kind of do a little competition and create their own sway while she's working with them in the workshop. And that's a fun one. All right. We have about 3 minutes left. I want to honor your time. I want to thank you so much for joining me. These are going to be fun. I'm excited to do them. I want to bring more visibility to the waffle. And, again, these are the things that we use every day. Everybody needs it. I need to know, where the heck do these files live when I share them with other people? So feel free to reach out to me. Again, Facebook, my blog, email. And then if you want to keep up on what events we've got going on, you can go ahead and connect or subscribe to me on any of these because we'll be promoting them. And I'm with Power Up Learning. So if you have any questions, feel free to email or keep in touch. And again, thanks so much for joining me today. It's Waffle Wednesday. And, in my head, I always think of it's Donkey going, in the morning, we're making waffles. So in the morning, on Wednesdays, we're learning waffles. All right. We're going to go ahead and end the webinar. Thanks so much again for joining me. I'm Shortcut Sherry, and it's my job to make your job easier.